Well, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
At Grace Life, what we like to do, and what I'm going to have all of us do for just a moment, although I know we won't have any problem doing it, is we take a moment to greet one another, and not just anyone. Greet someone you haven't greeted today, and in addition to that, I want all of you to share at least one prayer request you have, or a praise report with this person you have not spoken to today. So I'll give you a few minutes. Okay, go. I enjoy and I love seeing the fact that it took a while for everyone to settle back down. It just shows that we're so excited to be here. It shows that we're excited to be in relationship, in community with one another. And what we're doing here today isn't just a picnic. It isn't just us hanging out. We're fostering unity here today. We're in intentional relationship with one another. And that is important. Dare I say it is one of the most important aspects of life itself. I mean, what we desire to do in this life is to be in relationship with God. And so relationship is up there, if not the most important thing that we have. And for me, personally, one thing that I'm finding that I'm enjoying with my friends is that I like getting to that place. Because it's like, I love catching up with people. I'm sure everyone here likes, oh, we should catch up sometime. Yeah, that's going to be amazing. Go out, get coffee, whatever. That's great. But for me, I really like getting to the point where I don't need to catch up with someone. Where I don't have to feel like, oh, what's going on in your life right now? Because I know. I know exactly what's going on in your life. I know exactly what the hardships are. I know exactly what all your prayer requests and praise reports are already. We've been to that place where we've been comfortable, where we've shared everything, where we can just hang out and talk about nothing. And that's an amazing place to be in a relationship. Surprisingly, it might not feel like it, but that is a very good sign for a relationship where you don't need to catch up. You don't have anything where it's like, oh, did you hear about this going on in my life? And be like, yeah, I was there. What are you talking about? And so one thing that I've seen and that I've learned over the years is that without a doubt, relationship breeds effective ministry. We're infinitely more effective when we do ministry with someone that we have a relationship with, that we know how they work, that we know where their story, or what their story is, where they come from. When we know all of that, we're so much more effective. But that's not, of course, the reason why we go into relationship with someone. We don't say, oh, I just want to know you just because I want to do ministry with you, and that's it. No, of course not. It's a byproduct of good relationship. One of the things I've learned from Pastor Burmy over the years is that, at least from a pastoral side, or when you're in a church setting, one of the worst times to get to know someone, one of the worst times to meet someone for the first time is when someone dies. That's the worst time, where someone dies and you go to the hospital and say like, oh, I'm so sorry. What's your name? And it's so bad. That's one of the worst times. You should have a relationship before that. You should have a relationship before hardships come, or right in the middle of them. What I desire for everyone is to have those genuine bonds with people. The genuine things where you talk to someone and you don't feel like there's an agenda behind them. There's a guy I knew, my wife and I know, and he talked to me one day and he asked me, he said, Anthony, we should get dinner sometime. It's like, would it be possible for us to come over? We'll bring some food and we'll talk and just hang out. And I was like, oh yeah, that sounds amazing. Hang out is like my favorite word. And so he comes on over with his wife and we're sitting down. I cook some food. We're having a nice time and he's talking, but I sensed something was amiss in the midst of this. We're eating and we're talking, and at a point in time, he puts down his utensils and he says, Anthony, I gotta tell you, he's like, I'm doing something with ministry right now, and I'm wondering if we could get your financial help. Oh, there it is. Oh, go, leave my house. Oh, it had to do that. I'm sure everyone here has encountered that kind of person in their life. probably, can I get a show of hands, who's encountered someone who just has an agenda when they're talking to you, and it's not just like, hey, I just want to know you because you're an amazing person that God's created, but I want to know you because you have more money than me, or I want to know you because you're a young person that can do physical things that I can, or I just want to know you because you're smarter than me and you can correct my papers for college or something. Any one of those agenda-like reasons, I'm sure we've encountered. And it just leaves a bad taste in our mouth because it's not genuine. There's something else there. And this leads me to the main point of what I'm talking about today is the enemy of relationship, the enemy of unity we find is discord. We see that in Philippians 4 verse 2, which is what I'm going to be speaking out of today. And in this, Paul is writing a letter to the church of Philippi. And one of the reasons he wrote this letter was to combat just that. There was discord happening within this from people just spreading gossip, people just being ingenuine to one another, and there were just things happening within the body. And when there's discord in the body, we are so ineffective in the mission of the church, which is to go out and to make disciples who will make disciples, and so on and so forth. And so Philippians 4 verse 2, I plead with Euodia, and I plead with Syntyche to be of the same mind in the Lord. Euodia and Syntyche at this point in time were both members of the church, and they had hit this crossroads where they were just at odds with one another. They had offended each other, they were spreading gossip about one another, and Paul was aware of this. He knew of the damage that discord, the damage that a lack of harmony can cause in a church, and he wanted to combat this. He wanted to fight against this. He goes on to say, yes, and I ask you, my true companion, help these women, since they have contended at my side in the cause of the gospel, along with Clement and the rest of my co-workers, whose names are in the book of life. Unity is vital, absolutely vital to the mission of the church. If we as a body, even though there are 3 churches here right now, we are one body. Even though there are churches all throughout the world, there is one body. And yet we will always hear cases of lots of infighting, people getting hurt, people leaving the church, people just being angry at the pastor, people being angry at one another. That happens all the time, as unfortunate as it is. And one of the things I like to tell people, because of one big cause for people leaving the church, is offense. People get offended all the time. Almost every single time there's church, I'm sure somebody leaves offended to some capacity. One thing I like to tell people in counseling is I go in, especially if there's like an offense between 2 people. One thing I like to tell people is that, or I'll ask everyone here today, did anyone come here with the intention, I cannot wait to offend Anthony today. I can't wait to offend somebody here today. I can't wait to hurt some feelings. I can't wait to wreck some relationships. Did anyone come here? No. You know what? I'm going to go out on a limb and say 100% of us here have good intentions going in to this picnic here today. I'm going out on a limb there, just throwing that out there. And one thing that I like to tell people in the midst of counseling is that it's a quote I read online, and I really liked it, and it's really stuck with me and really changed how I interact with people, especially when it comes to offense, is that we judge ourselves by our actions, but we judge others by we judge ourselves by our intentions, but we judge others by their actions. And so if we had the mindset of thinking, what is their intention? All of us here have been offended at some point in our life. I don't need to ask for a raise of hands. We have been offended. But when we do the offense, do we often think like, oh yeah, I was really trying to hurt them at that time. Oh, I really wanted to make sure that they were crying at the end of this conversation that we had. I really wanted them to go home and for them to just be writing this angry email to me talking about how badly I hurt them. No one goes in with that intention. And yet we say something, we do something that hurts someone, And then suddenly there is this discord between us. There's discord within the body. And I'm sure all of us here have seen people leave churches, leave New Hope, leave Grace Life, leave GFC out of offense. I'm 100% sure that has happened. And so Paul, in speaking to these two women and speaking to his church, is trying to combat just that. He's trying to combat these offenses. He's trying to combat this discord that the enemy seeks to sow in all of us, in all of the churches that have been planted, to seek discord in the body so that we can't see that we're all on the same side. We're all on the exact same side, regardless of denomination, regardless of your theology. If we all can submit to Jesus Christ, we're all on the same side. And so one thing, or one of the main ways that Paul goes on to combat this in his letter to the church of Philippi is in Philippians 2 verse 5, where he says, in your relationships with one another, have the same mindset as Christ. Later on in that verse he says, who came here as God, but did not consider himself equal to God. He didn't use his divinity as leverage over any of us. He could have, he should have. By all means, if God was one of us imperfect people, he would have in a heartbeat used that divinity to leverage it over us, but he didn't. He became subservient to us. He became subservient to death itself. And so when we encounter one another in daily life, in church, when there's an offense had, we need to embody who Christ is. We need to embody his grace for one another. We need to embody his sacrificial nature, his selflessness, where, hey, you know what, that hurt my feelings, but I know that wasn't your intention. For me, one of the things that, I will just be vulnerable and say it all the time, it happens. I've learned to have my own coping mechanism for it, but it always hurts. Everyone has those things that hurt. For me, it's like I'll see people and they're like, oh, Anthony, you've gained a little weight. I'm like, oh, thanks so much. That made me feel so good. But I know that's not their intention. Is their intention to be like, oh, Anthony, I want to lower your self-esteem? No, that's no one's intention. But there are different cultures in a church. In different cultures, that's common. I remember Regina, who lived in Peru for a few months, for 6 months, her family would say that to her all the time in Spanish, and that was very common in that household where she would come down for breakfast and they're like, oh, Regina, you're looking a little fatter today. And that was just the culture, to just be direct in that way, and for them, that's not offensive. They're just being honest, be like, you're looking a little fat today, what's going on? And it's not mean. Their intention isn't to say like, oh, you look ugly, you look horrible, you need to lose some weight. No, it's not that. Their intentions aren't bad, but then we interpret their actions as they were trying to hurt me. They were going for my heart. They know exactly where my insecurities are. No, that's not people. Our intentions, more often than not, are good. Our intentions, more often than not, are to build relationship. But we all have different communication styles. We all have different means of processing information, and that's okay. We want unity to be built in the body of Christ. And to do that, we need to embody Christ in his grace, in his selflessness, in his understanding for one another. Because at the very end of it, we're all on the same team. Amen? Amen.